Bushroad can't leave their moneymakers alone, so these holidays are filled with some fish season. Or was it last year's holidays?
Stand up! Vanguard!
Crystal Melody is the second Bermuda Triangle set in the V-series that follows the insane release of Primary Melody. The word melody in Crystal Melody sends shivers down anyone's spine that went through the melody apocalypse that happened at the end of Wave 1. And even though they got more support in this set, it's not the melody deck that comes on top at the end of this set release. Following the mysterious fortune and itself being yet again an extra booster makes it the 11th in the series. Just like the other Bermuda set, this set only contains Bermuda Triangle cards, but it's split among several different decks. We get support for Melody, Highlander, and generic support, but also the introduction of 3 new decks, Riviere, Coral, and Pacifica. This set contains 48 cards, from which 43 are new cards and 5 reprints. The card rarities are divided into 1 Legendary Idol Rare, 3 VRs, 5 Triple Rs, 10 Double Rs, 12 rares, and 17 commons, from which 5 are reprints, 4 triggers, and 1 starter. The positive about these reprints are that they have an alternative art from their original counterpart. Hopefully they do this more often with trigger reprints, as it gives people more ways to customize their decks. This set gives Bermuda access to their 3rd critical trigger, 2 new starters, and the grade 1 drop draw PG. They also get 2 new vanillas, the 15k shield grade 1 and another 10k grade 2. As for the parallels, we have 3 SVRs, 4 SPs, 5 secret special rares, and 2 imaginary gift rares. But we also have 1 unregistered special parallel that is a hot stamp version of the legendary idol rare. The 3 SVRs are of course parallels of the VRs of Coral, Riviere, and Pacifica. The 4 SPs are winter versions of the 3 VRs and the legendary idol rare Eve. The 5 super special rares are the Melody grade 2 Triple Rs with a hot stamp signature on them. And finally, the 2 imaginary gift rares are the ice themed of Force 1 and Force 2 markers, so there's a lot to collect in this set. Even though this set only provides support for 1 clan, as mentioned before, there are many different playstyles that are made possible from this set, as you can build 6 different decks from this set, as well as 1 or 2 budget decks. As we start off with the poster girl of the set herself, Crystal Popstar Eve. As a grade 4, she can be used as an extra boss unit for the Highlander deck, which makes sense, and with the addition of the Pearl Sisters, you actually get more interactions in a Highlander style than just running simple one-offs. Also with a new main grade 3 in the likes of Silver Singer Q-Tire, you can make a Highlander all the more consistent, as you can fetch out any one card, making the Pearl Sisters or your grade 4s that more consistent. If you want to focus on the Highlander aspect of Bermuda, then you want to get your playsets now, as this will become a staple card for that strategy. However, this isn't the only way to use Crystal Popstar Eve, as she can even become her own deck. She will be a more aggressive deck that will swarm the field in the early game and overwhelm the opponent with its sheer power, as even against control clans, she won't have a big issue or play very defenses and get a free field on turn 4 and rely on defensive triggers against multi-attack clans, as her skill works both ways. With this power, Eve can overcome any opponent. That combined with the new grade 4 support cards like Bubble Dream Parisia, which increases the crit pressure, Affable Wash Tekla, which combats the inconsistency issue that comes from running main deck grade 4s, and you can have a very scary deck. With the crystal part covered, let's talk about the Melody part of this set. In this set we can find 5 new Melody support cards. These are effectively the grade 2 counterparts of the grade 3 versions. They all have the Melody keyword. However, only Sonata actually has a Melody skill that will be shared among the other Melody units, and only Serena and Caro can be used outside a Melody deck. From the latter will be used in almost any competitive Bermuda build, as getting another copy of your Vanguard is an extremely powerful skill. In terms of the Melody deck itself, it gets a small boost in power and early game potential, but besides Sonata and Carol, there won't be much of a change to the already existing deck. Now it's time to take a look at the new VR builds of this set, and we start off with the Aurora Star herself, Coral. The new Coral deck focuses on bouncing cards from the field and drop to hand, and soul blasting cards to attain immense power and extra criticals. Because of the nature of these extra crits means this deck works only with Force 1 to really reach high numbers. The Coral Ride Chain helps with fueling all the soul blasting abilities to achieve constant pressure, and with the various support cards we either can capitalize on the extra soul blasting or put nasty guard restrictions on our opponent to really put them in an awkward spot. The next idol that we're featuring is top idol Pacifica. Pacifica is all about getting all our copies onto the field to get different skill benefits from extra drive checks, power, guard restrict, and even extra markers. The fact you can generate so many markers makes Force 1 much better, but with the superior Battledore effect on your attacks and being able to generate free markers in one turn can make Force 2 also very effective. But Pacifica is really deadly thanks to her support card, as she has 2 very solid searchers and also other fetchers, which helps you get Pacifica from anywhere, deck, drop, and even damage zone. So Pacifica is a solid beast. But the final deck that arises from this set is top idol Riviere, the deck that takes the meta by storm at this point. Top idol Riviere is all about rewriting the Vanguard, where the grade 3 does that during the battle phase to multi-attack, the grade 1 and 2 do that during the main phase to cycle cards to get you to your grade 3 faster. The whole deck is around getting your Rivieres as fast as possible, just like Pacifica, only in this case you want them in your hand to reuse them. This is seen very clearly in the support cards as well, as they synergize more around the fact that you're rewriting than just fetching copies. This set contains a lot of interesting design cards like Prominent Personality Terminer that changes the way how you perform G-Assist. Only the sad part is that even though this is a really unplayable card, it's completely made obsolete with the introduction of the Shield ticket, which is guaranteed and makes G-Assisting cheaper. Or the 16 card grade 3 strategy that can counter multi-attack clans. This is something we come to expect of Bermuda Triangle. Only in this set, most of the cards are contained to a certain archetype with the whole three-way divide support for the new idol decks. But even though that is the case, I have 4 cards from 4 different rarities that I want to highlight, and let's start with the common card. Silver Ardor Solda is a very specific card and wouldn't work in most clans, but for Bermuda, where most of the strategy revolves around grade 3s, makes this card pretty versatile. This card can work in Melody, making the deck more consistent, as they don't have to solely rely on Caro to make boosting units. Also, this gives some units resist, making it tougher for your opponent to remove your field. However, this also works wonders in the new Pacifica build, as that deck wants to have all copies of the grade 3 on the board. Giving them boost and resist makes the deck really powerful and annoying to deal with. This all will also apply to the 16 copy budget build of Trouble Veridol Prayer Stiff. This can even work in an early game setting, as you can make 20k columns with a boosting grade 2 if you happen to have a copy of your Vanguard. The next card is Riddle Mysteria Lufen. This grade 2 has a very powerful on hit effect, as it can give you a lot of counter charging, but at the same time can be a solid beater during the late game. In the current states of Bermuda Triangle, this won't do much, as most of your abilities rely on soul blasting. But the moment Bermuda Triangle starts relying on counterblast more and more, this can become a staple, especially in a clan that has a card like Colorful Pastril Fina that can make on-hit effects to always resolve. So keep an eye on this card for the future, as this can make a comeback. I already addressed this card when I talked about the Highlander build, but this card deserves more attention, as Silver Singer Q-Tire is one like any card we had before in Vanguard. Never had we ever got a card that could get us anything, either it was name restricted or grade restricted or restricted to the top X cards of a deck. This card can get us anything. Do we need a right target? No problem. Do we need a rear guard? No problem. Do we need a combo piece? No problem. Do we need a defensive card? No problem. This card substitutes as any card in your deck, which is insane. It effectively makes your deck shrink in size, as you can say we run a 46 card deck. But in actuality, it is more than that, as it can be any card we want at that time. So you can also see it as 4 extra copies of any card in your deck. The only downside is that we aren't 100% guaranteed to get the card we want in our deck due to its restriction. But even in a normal deck, depending on how your deck operates, if your whole win con is around getting a certain card like Pacifica, running a card like this might be worth the risk, as not getting Pacifica will mean an auto loss. Also during late game, when you're top decking a card, as long as you don't need a specific right target, this can be a golden ticket, as you can now search for that card, and in a late game scenario, the chance it hits will increase significantly. And of course, this card makes Highlander decks all the more viable. The last card I want to highlight is the most sought after RRR in this set, and that is from Colorful Pastril, Caro. This card is insane for obvious reasons in a clan that works around mainly grade 3 boss units, and that wants to have multiple copies, albeit for Coral, for more Coral rearguards, Melody to have more Melody units, Pacifica to unlock more powers, Riviere to rewrite multiple times, or Passive to get more value. Being able to simply fetch a copy of our Vanguard from our deck does not only filter our deck, but also advance our game plan quite significantly. This card is mainly built with Melody in mind, hence the grade 3 restriction, but because of how these new VR builds function, she has become quite popular outside of her intended deck. Crystal Melody opens the door to a whole wide range of playstyles that is quite unique to Vanguard, at least in standard, as having 2, max 3 very distinctive decks in a single clan is very rare. But here, we can clearly see 6 very unique decks that are all viable in their own unique way. That concludes the set breakdown for Crystal Melody, but this is where we're going to get into the interesting part, as now I'm going to tell you which deck spotlights we're going to feature on the channel. And only with one clan, you'll think we only have one deck spotlight, but we're not going to have 1, not 2, but 4 different deck spotlights for Bermuda Triangle. So there's a lot that we can talk about with this new set. And the first deck spotlight we're going to dive right into is the deck spotlight for the new legendary idol rare, the new grade 4, that is Crystal Popstar Eve. And after that, we're going to dive into the 3 different VR builds. And the first one that we're going to tackle after Eve is top idol Pacifica, with her 4 copies strength ability, where she can overpower the opponent when she has multiple copies onto the board. And then after that, we go into the Aurora Star herself as we dive into the deck spotlight for Coral, with the whole bouncing, soul blasting, soul charging shenanigans, where she can empower units with extra crits and a lot of power to overwhelm the opponent. And finally, we go into the big main attraction of this set, that is top idol Riviere and her endless rewrite combo shenanigans, where she just can smack the opponent out of the game when they're still at grade 2 and you just attack like 4 or 5 times with your Vanguard. So if any of these deck spotlights sound interesting to you, then why not subscribe to the channel, hitting the bell button to be updated, and of course slapping a like on this video if you're interested in more of these type of content, as right after this video we're going to dive in these deck spotlights. As always, this video has been brought to you by our lovely patrons over at Patreon/Vanguard Insider. You guys are amazing. If you do want to support the channel or everything that's happening on the channel, why not head on over to patreon.com/Vanguard Insider and become a Patreon today. But with that said, I'm Mr. Timeleaf, and I see you guys in the next one!